everyone, Jessa here. So we're vlogging. Vlogging is happening. And so today I have done a lot of recording and editing, and it's been a really long day. And it occurred to me today that there were a couple of times when I sort of held back or maybe censored my opinion. And it's really sort of an interesting thing, and people who know me in real life will say it's not really typical of me. Typically, I'm very much the type of person to just say what I'm thinking, try to be as politically correct as possible, or sort of sugarcoat things, maybe. Well, no, that's not even a really good way to put it. But I'm not out there to offend anyone or to put it in the harshest terms possible. So I think I sort of try to present things in the best light. Unfortunately, you're going to say things that people disagree with, or have a problem with, or are really offended by, and take as a personal attack, and that is unfortunate. I certainly cannot think of a time when I have necessarily meant that with ill intent, anything that I've said. Sometimes it's just a misunderstanding, and you hope that in most cases it is a misunderstanding. But for my part, I think today it was more about feeling like my point wasn't either being expressed correctly or wasn't being received with the intent that I was trying to get across. And it's a very interesting thing, and I'm gonna advocate speaking your mind in all cases. I think that it's a very fine line, though. Like I said, you're gonna say things that people don't necessarily agree with, and that's okay. You're allowed to have a dissident opinion. Certainly, you are entitled to your opinion, whatever it is. You are not, however, entitled to force that on someone else. And sort of bully them into your point of view. And, I try to be very conscientious of that in how I come across, and I certainly hope that that's evident, and I really hope that anyone I've had a disagreement with feels the same way. There's a difference between, sort of joking around and kidding, and sort of dismissing someone, and actually dismissing someone, and refusing to hear their point because it differs from your own. And I really hope that people, when they speak with me, whether it's my friends or a stranger within the community, that it really is just trying to make a point, that they sort of feel like they have the ability to do so without feeling like I'm shutting them down or dismissing them. Because I know, having been dismissed myself, I know how horrible that is, and how you really sort of feel a little bit powerless. And I think that is a really tragic thing, to make someone else feel powerless, like they do not have even the ability to voice an opinion. It is probably one of the worst things out there, because no one has the right to take that away from you, to make you feel badly about the way that you feel about something. Like, look, you're allowed to have a different opinion. You are allowed to make judgments. We all do it. It happens. Sometimes the judgment that we make is not necessarily a favorable one. But at the end of the day, none of us has the right to make anyone else feel badly or feel like they cannot voice an opinion. Yes, it may not be the popular opinion. It may go against every fiber in your being, but someone has the right to at least voice it. Hopefully they will do it in a polite manner, so as not to offend anyone else's sensibilities. But I think we also need to remember that people are going to have different opinions, that we are not always going to be right, that our own experiences color our judgments, and we need to respect that other people have different experiences, and therefore will have their judgments informed differently. That being said, I think part of what held me back today was also this idea that I really want to say something, and oh, wait a second, I'm a little out there as far as my public persona. So there's the sort of idea that if I put this out there, someone may see it, someone who may take it as a personal attack, or uh, not necessarily offensive, but yeah, we'll just stick with personal attack as sort of like a jibe at them. And that is certainly never anything that I want out there. Most people will know if I have a problem with you, I will come to you directly. I'm not one of those people to sort of talk about it behind your back and like really sort of stab you in the back. Like if you've done me wrong, heck far, I will tell you you've done me wrong. I don't have a problem with that because I've spent way too much of my life being nice. Frankly, there it is, and worrying about how other people feel and sort of being walked all over because of that, because I am willing to sort of step aside for the benefit of someone else, even if it's a perceived injustice or perceived passing over, because let's face it, there are some people who really need to be the center of attention or who need to feel like they're the ones in control, and so sometimes it's just easier to let that happen, to let that person be in that role. And sometimes it's really just about saving your own skin. Like, okay, what do I gain if I speak up, if I sort of put myself in the line of fire? Do I gain anything? Is my point made? And sometimes you do have to weigh that option, and it's unfortunate. Because, like I said, nobody has the right to make you feel like you're not allowed to voice your opinion. But sometimes I think we also need to think about, does this opinion need to be voiced? If you're not going to gain any ground in your argument, is it worth stirring up another point of contention? And sometimes, look, I love to debate, and sometimes I am guilty of making an argument just for argument's sake, because I am not willing to back down. It happens. Like I said, I like to debate. But I think at a certain point you need to realize, like, if you see the other person's perspective and you understand, I think you owe it to that other person to acknowledge that and say, look, I see where you're coming from. I don't necessarily agree, but I'm willing to concede that, yes, that is a different way to look at it, and I understand where you're coming from. As far as the idea that you're going to put something out there that somebody's going to see, usually that's not something I worry about a whole lot. But I will admit, like, there were times, like, there was something that I wanted to say, like, I wanted to make a point, and I was just like, okay, I'm going to shoot off this tweet, and it's going to be short and sweet, and then it's like, oh, but if anybody ever comes across that, they could be taken a different way than I intend that to be, where it's sort of venting a bit of steam in a moment that really doesn't go any further than that moment, and that current feeling of frustration. When somebody comes across that later and reads that, there's no tone in a tweet, in an email, in a Facebook post, and sometimes we have to remember that as well. What we say off the cuff in a moment sometimes can be seen in a different light and can be taken with a different intention. And so for me, it was more about making that conscientious decision to say, is this something that needs to be said? Is it something that needs to be out there, for who knows how long? Is it something that, is really worth a miscommunication? Or somebody taking to be more serious than it is? And at the end of the day, the answer was no. And so it really was a conscientious decision. Like, I believe in free speech, I really do. And I believe that we all have the right to voice our opinion. However, we also need to temper that with, is it worth risking the idea that you may hurt someone, whether intentionally or not. And at the end of the day, for me at least, the answer is no. It's never worth hurting someone, even just potentially, uh, for a moment of venting. Because at that point, nobody gains anything. You gain a momentary release, fine. But when that comes back at you, and when you have to explain your actions or your words, or that there was no malevolent intent at the time, you now have risked a relationship or a friendship, and for what? For the sake of, an offhanded comment. And I know that there are people out there who are going to say, well, that person should grow a thicker skin. They should know you well enough to know that you were kidding, or that you needed to vent. But the reality is that people don't think that way. In most cases, people think about themselves and think about their immediate reaction. And a lot of times we come at things from a sense of having to defend ourselves. And I'm just saying, take a moment before you say something, before you put something out there, that whether or not you mean to inflict injury, you may. And is it worth it? Or can you spare someone's feelings, by just letting the moment pass? So that's my 2 cents for today. I feel like I sort of rambled a bit, and you guys don't really know what I'm talking about. And I'm sorry if that's the case, but I hope that somewhere in this video there is a point that you're able to sort of grab onto and run with. And everybody just be nice to each other. Agree to disagree, let it go, move on. But I think above all else, just take a moment to think about how your words affect others, and how they can sometimes have unintended meaning. And sometimes that meaning is thrust upon them. And I think, unfortunately, it still behooves us to think about that.